Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another meeting by Conscious Living Spirits Group on this beautiful Sunday morning here in Miami. I would like to welcome everybody who will be joining us this morning. If you are already out there and is participating, please make sure that you say hi, that you say good morning. Let us know you were there and joining our conversation this morning. Good morning, Lucia. Good to see you. Please let me know if you can hear me well and see me well. Good morning, Biga. So nice to see you. I'm very excited today because today we're going to have a different meeting with a completely different setup. And I'm very excited to introduce our my partner for today's meeting. He is going to be coming up soon. But first, again, I'm going to change a little bit the sequence of our meeting today, and I'm going to start with our initial prayer because our morning reading is actually together part of our lecture for today. So instead of reading and doing our prayer, I will start today. I will open with our prayer. So, Biga, Lucia, if you guys could just put a thumbs up for me, let me know you can hear me well and everything. The stream is okay. I would appreciate that. Um, and I will ask you then to join me. Let's just give me a second. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Lucia. Thank you for the thumbs up. Okay, thank you, Biga. Appreciate that. I'm always a little insecure. Want to make sure everybody's hearing me well. All right, very good. So let's start by raising our thoughts and our hearts to our Lord Jesus and our Father by expressing our gratitude for this opportunity being here today, gathering in Jesus' name, gathering to praise, to learn, to grow. It is a true gift to be able to have this space, although an online space, but nevertheless a space where we gather with our minds, with our intents and thoughts and feelings to attend to our spiritual needs. So we're extremely grateful for this opportunity, and we ask God to embrace us all at this time, to inspire us all as we prepare to think together, to meditate on topics that are essential to our living, to the quality of our lives, to our enlightenment and peace. Help us to absorb it as much as possible. Help us to be open. Help us to do our part preparing the soil of our own souls to receive the seeds of the gospel and of spiritism, so that our hearts and our souls can bloom with light, with joy, with harmony. Bless particularly today my dear friend Lucas, who is joining us for this conversation, and myself as we together will be delivering today's meeting. Bless us all from both sides of life. Thank you again, and so be it. All right, so I am here today with my friend Lucas, and I was wondering here for a second if I should introduce you as Lucas Gabriel, Lucas Evangelista. Who are you?
Lucas, only Lucas is good enough for me, but Lucas Gabriel is very good also.
Because I put Lucas Evangelista, but is Evangelista part of your name or not?
Yeah, it is. He is my part of my father's name. So, but I do like Lucas Gabriel. No, it is the way my fathers
Oh,
call me, my
okay.
parents call me. So I do prefer Lucas
Okay.
Gabriel.
Lucas
It's more, I
Gabriel.
don't know. It's more simple for me. I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. So Lucas is with us today. He is speaking from Manaus.
Yes, Brazil.
And yes, we had an opportunity to meet, what, 3 years ago?
Yeah, I believe it was 2018. 2018.
Yeah. When I actually, for the first and only time, had a chance to go to Manaus and to
Yeah,
participate. of that incredible conference by the Spiritist Federation of Manaus,
Amazonas.
yes, Amazonas, yes, Amazonas, and there I had the opportunity to do a little bit of work with the youth, and Lucas was part of it. So since then
Yes,
we have developed this friendship. I may say, call it a friendship. And today
yes,
I'm
well,
very excited to have him here. I have done some work with him in Portuguese, and I challenge him for the first time
that is my very
to
first time.
very first time. So you will get all the support of the good spirits and all our friends who are joining us here today. And so Lucas is going to start. He's a very active worker in the Spiritist Federation of Amazon in Brazil. He coordinates the NEPI. NEPI is a study of the gospel, a more in-depth study of the gospel. So he is part of this group in Manaus, and he currently is part of different study groups online that he helps coordinate and participate at different times, Tuesdays, Thursdays in Brazil. If anyone is interested, since this is an English meeting, if anyone
Yes.
is interested in finding out about this work, please let us know. We'll send you the information afterwards. Okay. So, with no further ado, I'm going to pass the word to Lucas. He's going to get us started. I'm going to be right here, and then I'm going to take over. And at the end, we're going to have a little conversation about the topic for today. So, Lucas, go ahead. It's all yours.
First of all, thanks so much, Susanna, for having me today, for having the opportunity to do I believe my first talk in English. It is a huge honor, for real, a huge honor. Even I don't know to be here with you. And as Susanna said, I am in Manaus, Brazil, in the middle of the Amazon forest. I am surrounded by a lot of forest, a lot of trees, and I'm going to read one chapter of the book, The Way, the Truth and the Life by Emmanuel and Chico Xavier. The chapter is the chapter 151, Youthfulness. It is one verse of Paul to Timothy, and Paul says, "Flee the desires of youth and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace with those who call on the Lord with a pure heart." Paul, 2 to Timothy, chapter 2, verses 22. And Emmanuel's goal. Those who are involved with young people usually assign them so much power that they end up misguided, deceived, and careless. Too much is expected of them. We agreed that young people do have incredible potential, but we need to remember that this phase of earthly existence is the one that requires the most guidance. Young people can and will do a lot if older and more experienced persons do not withhold their help in the work to be done. Young people cannot build anything new if they do not use the efforts of those who preceded them. In everything they do, they rely on their predecessors. Youth can be compared to the promised departure of a ship on an important voyage. Childhood was the preparation for it, and old age will be the arrival in port. Every phase of the trip requires lessons from experienced sailors to learn how to organize and finish successfully. It is crucial to support the mentality of the young. However, no one should offer the promise of illusory power. The desires of most young people do not always represent a future safe harbor. Young people may be able to do a lot, but in everything they should pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace with those who call on the Lord with a pure heart. It's very funny because the second to Timothy it is one of my favorite letters of Paul. And first of all, I want to ask for all of us what Paul left behind to Timothy. Because Paul is going to die. He knows he's going to die. He didn't left behind money, books, lands. No. He left a huge way, a huge path of spiritual life, ascending, at least spiritually, to Timothy. Many of us may think that Paul was a spiritual leader, was a preacher, but after all that, he was a father. In the beginning of the second to Timothy, Paul says to Timothy, my dear son. All of us that may many times in life pursue what is right, what is good, what is eternal, what is beautiful. We are fathers, mothers, sisters, and brothers of those who are behind us. When you read this verse, we may think that youthfulness it is a stage of the biological life. I mean, being born, being a child, being young, being an adult, being old. That is only temporary phase of the material life, the biological life, even death. However, of course, Paul, that is graced by the divine inspiration, with Christ, and of course, our friends in the spiritual side of life, of course, he's also talking about the youthfulness of the soul. Susanna here with us, she is young. I am young. This body, of course, is dying, is getting old. But Paul is talking about all of those who are young yet to pursue Jesus, to go after his life, to remember the gospel. So what Paul left behind to Timothy? He says in the second Timothy also, I am already being poured out like a drink offering. The time of my departure has come. He's going to die. And he says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I kept the faith. Those are the values, the spiritual values that Paul left to Timothy. As Emmanuel says, if life it is indeed the ship in the middle of the ocean of life, we have anchors that stop us. There's anger, hatred, not looking for the beauty of life, what is really eternal. Only think about the material things, the possessions. Those are anchors. And Paul, of course, offers to all those who are brave enough to be young with Jesus to breathe the gospel, to live by the gospel, to pursue what is right, what is eternal, what is beautiful. And we can never forget that. Never forget that. We have, or at least life's not divided by two sides of things. Those are young and old. No. We have those that are younger and those that are younger for a little more time. Let's say that way. Life never ends. Life goes on and on. So of course, there is a huge error of our part if we believe that only the youngs can change the world, can change their hearts. No. All of those, as Paul said to Timothy, that flees the desire of the youth and pursue the righteousness, the faith and love and peace, and call on the Lord with a pure heart, are the youth, have the youthfulness of the soul, to never give up, to understand what is discipline, what is order, what is important in life, to have the courage to leave the harbor away and go in the ocean of life. Let's not forget that Paul is dying, but he left to Timothy and all of us, let's say also his children, spiritual children of him, a way to find Jesus in good and bad news. We need always to remember to call Jesus and those who call on the Lord with a pure heart. Those are the initial words that I have to say about this letter. Thanks so much for having me. Susanna, I believe he's muted.
Thank you for reminding me that. I usually put on mute so my dogs they participate. They always like to participate in the
Yeah, of
meetings
course.
with
Yeah.
us. So, thank you. Actually, that was pretty inspiring to think that I've been younger for a little bit more of time. I'm going to start thinking of myself that way, and I am going to take something that you said. You said that um, you took this passage and made it much broader, meaning that Paul was kind of passing the mission to all the ones
Torch.
who, yeah, the torch to all the ones who were behind and were still young enough to have the courage to leave the port to to do the work, right? Um, a little bit more literally, my analysis is going to be a little bit more literal than yours. And what I would like to bring today is actually a little bit of a scientific perspective to this passage. And I'm going to get a little bit into the psychological realm here. And then I'm going to bring you back. And then you tell me what you think about this
Of
approach.
course.
Okay? All right.
Okay.
So when we think about the the youth, right? So Lucas was uh, telling us that yes, we all fit into this category, but there is something very particular to the the younger generation, the generation that in Genesis will say that, you know, it is the role of the new generation, the transformation of the world. And when we think about the teenager years and we think about the younger young, let's put it this way, right? A lot of times we address those with a lot of hope in what they will become, a lot of hope in what they can do for our planet, for our yeah, for our Earth, right? Especially now that we are in this transition. So a lot of efforts are put into passing on the gospel and providing more education to our younger generation, really putting our efforts into educating this generation ethically and morally, because they are the ones who are inheriting the earth and who will be carrying on the work that has been done. And in Genesis, the spirits are going to tell Kardec that, you know, many of the institutions and ideas that are currently present, they're old, they are antiquated, and they really need to be rethought and renovated by new minds, by new ideas, by new concepts. So I would like to talk about that, but also to bring to our attention that there is a lot of negative connotations sometimes associated to the youth. And to Lucas' point, uh, or not, but you know, we used to think about teenager years from, let's say, 15 to 19, 20, some decades ago. We're getting teenagers at earlier years. So today we're starting at the age of 12. And it has actually prolonged a little beyond 19, 20. I think teenager years today go somewhere 12 to 45, 50 years old sometimes. So that's a joke, but it's not a joke. I mean, there are some individuals nowadays that I think more than before that are having a difficult time growing out of those teenager years. So, but with that, there's a lot of negative connotations, such as, you know, teenagers are irresponsible, teenagers are crazy, teenagers are lazy, and all that because of these raging hormones. They're driving them nuts, and etc. And there are actually nowadays a number of studies, and psychology has really helped us to understand what happens to the teenager brain, to the youth, that actually has two sides to it. There's a number of changes that happens when you are younger, the younger young, that actually prepares the brain to give that spirit in a younger body the tools to flourish and the tools to fulfill its mission of questioning, of changing, of restructuring what needs to be done. So there are biological changes that take place that actually prepare the environment, the physical environment, for the spirit to manifest itself with all its potentialities, all new ideas. But these changes, they not only prepare the spirit and give the spirit the right environment to manifest its potentialities, it also creates a very frail and perhaps the most dangerous times in the life of the young. So when we think about our lives as children, right, we think about, and of course, not every child lives this way, but in general, right? I mean, hopefully for many, many kids in this world, um, the kid is awakened by loving parents who give him or her a kiss and ask him or her what he wants for breakfast, and the kid will say, "Oh, mommy, I want oatmeal." And mommy shouts to dad or whoever in the house, "Please get the oatmeal ready." And then, of course, that oatmeal comes with nuts and blueberries and brown sugar, nice and warm. Kid goes have that wonderful breakfast. Parents take the kid to school. In school, kids will play, will listen to stories, will draw, will paint, and then it's lunchtime. Mom and daddy go pick you up at school, bring you home. There's a wonderful lunch waiting for you at home. After lunch, how about a little nap, then a little cartoon, then let's play outside a little bit. Come back. Now it's time for mommy to put you in the shower. It scrubs your back, make sure you're all clean, bring it to the table. Now it's time for dinner, a little bed story, a kiss, and good night at the end of the day. So that could be the life of a 6-year-old, 5-year-old. And the question is, why would anyone with a life like that want to leave home? It's probably a wonderful life. And so a lot of us probably would want to continue with this life if nature didn't do its job. And nature's job is to change our brains so that we actually want to leave the oatmeal house and find our own home and find our own path and fulfill our mission in the world. So there are two things that nature does to our brains in order to produce these changes. One is when we are a child, our brain is growing, is sprouting. Every single experience, every time we put attention on something, a new connection is formed. So the brain is just flourishing with new connections. Guess what happens when you become a teenager and enter your young years? A very interesting process starts in the brain, which is a process of trimming. Yes, trimming. Just like you trim your yard, you this process starts in your brain. So some of these connections, they start to die in your brain, becomes more specialized. It develops some special circuits, and the specialization of the brain, the creation of these special circuits, is precisely what gives the spirit its environmental place to start expressing its tendencies and also its passions. So when we enter our younger years, right, we start to see more clearly what is the spirit tendency and what is the spirit being drawn towards. This specialization of circuits, this trimming of the brain, is what allows for the tendencies and passions of the spirit to start to express itself. In addition to that, there's another process that takes place, which is called the myelinization process, where sheets of myelin starts to link these special circuits. So everything starts to happen in a much faster way. So if you give a child 8 years old and a 14 years old a situation, the 14 years old is going to solve that much faster because the brain is more specialized and it's more connected. Whereas the younger child will use many different parts of the brain to try to solve that problem, which will take definitely much longer. So, along with that, we also have a very special area of the brain that is under great uh, construction and reconstruction, which is the limbic system. So, I'm going to talk very briefly about the limbic system. I'm going to bring five main functions of the limbic system. And the first one is the limbic system works with our body, every single part of our body, receiving impressions from the outside world, as well as with our brainstem, which is at the very base of our brain and is responsible for our survival. So in the brainstem, we find the centers that control our breathing, that control our heart, for example, who are responsible for the fight and flight response that happens on the stress. So this is an area for survival. So the connection between the limbic system, the brainstem, and the body parts creates what we call emotions. And these emotions, they travel to the, let's call, superior areas of our brain, where they're going to be decodified and we're going to understand them and name them and label them. So, but that's the first part, the first role of the limbic system, which is the creation of emotions. And a lot of times we haven't done really a very good job in decodifying emotions and understanding our emotions. So when a child falls, for example, the parent can have three different reactions. Can say, for example, stop crying, right? Be strong. That's one reaction. The mother can cry together with the child and be just as desperate and hurt as the child. Neither one of these situations is really good for that child. On the first one, the child doesn't learn anything. It's a completely cognitive approach for a situation. The second one, the mother or the parents are just like the child. There's no differentiation, but there is a third attitude where you can say to the child, oh my God, you fell. I imagine how scary that was. Let me help you to get up, right? So in this situation, what the parent is doing is acknowledging that that child had a feeling, that that feeling is okay, that the child is seen not only for the behavior, but for their emotional world as well. And in addition to that, we offer the child resources and assistance to get up. So why am I saying that? Because this part of the emotion of the limbic system is one that we had, I think, kind of overseen and not valued enough. But the other part of the limbic system is motivation. So the limbic system give us motivations to change. It helps us to assess and to determine what has value for us. So if I find something to be valuable, should I put more resources into that? If I find something to be less valuable for me, maybe I shouldn't be putting so much time into that. It helps us with memory. So as we get a little older on our younger years, but we have more memory. So that gives us a sense of who we are. And with that, some questions about life, about our existence, it starts to come up. And last but not least is an area responsible for connection. So when you were in trouble, when you were having a difficult time, who do you go to? Who is your supporting system? So those are the five main areas of the limbic system in a very simplified way, right? So again, we're looking at emotions, motivations, assessment, memory, and connections. When we think about the adolescent or the young person, this being is characterized by some elements that compose the essence of the teenager soul, so to speak. One of them is this emotional spark. So when we are younger, then we have this emotional spark, this passion about things, about life. And if you are healthy, young person, a healthy teenager who has had a home that has provided you with some strong relationships and a sense of security, then when you reach your teenager years, you have this joy, this passion for life. It's fun to be alive. And it is precisely this passion that's going to be driving you to, hey, although I love my oatmeal house, I want to go out there. I want to experience the world. So it's important that it happens this way so that the teenager wants to leave their home. Now, there are for every single one of these aspects a positive and not so positive aspect when we are very very young, and then I'm gonna get to it and link that with the spiritism and what spiritism can do to support our teenagers and our youth. So if on one hand there's this great spark for life and for passion and this desire to go out there, on the other hand, it's a very emotional brain. The teenager brain can be quite emotional, and so it can be at times extremely irritable, a little labile, and things can be taken very hard and very deeply. So the teenager might experience very deep sadness for things that, later on in life will take a little bit lighter, right? So this is kind of, something that, as we better understand that all these changes that are happening are not a bad thing per se, and the teenager is not what we used to think, lazy, crazy. I mean, we understand that all the changes have a higher purpose, actually, that is very much in line with the spiritism and our view of the teenager. As we understand that, we become adults who are better able to support the youth so that they can fulfill their role in the world, whether it is a 19, 20, 25, or even 35, 40-year-old younger person, like me, for example. So what we want to do is to provide this teenager, this young adult, with tools, tools that can help them to navigate their emotional realm, such as know thyself, right? So that's what Spiritism offered, know thyself. So we can start teaching our teenagers the values of emotion, understanding their emotions, naming their emotions, telling them that their emotions are not bad per se, but they are messengers of the soul. And so Spiritism plays a big role in the sense of we can help the teenager to deal and to, let's say, serve through their emotions with more balance, understanding, valuing, and actually using these emotions to understand who he or she is or where he and she are in life. The other aspect of the young is this draw for novelty. And we have in our brains a rewarding circuit that is driven by the presence of dopamine. Dopamine is a very powerful neurotransmitter that gives us a sense of euphoria and great satisfaction. So with the teenager brain, with the young brain that is being transformed, dopamine levels are running pretty high. There's actually a little bit of a change in the dopamine circuitry. And so when the youth, the young person, he achieves something, it's a it's a high that is generated biologically. So there's a lot of pleasure, there's a lot of satisfaction, and a lot of highs in this phase. Again, this is very important because it is important, again, I said important twice, that this generation is ready to, like I said, to question things and to implement new ideas in this world. And so the implementation of new ideas, building different things, gives the teenager brain a high that is motivational and that makes him or her to challenge and to go out there and to fulfill their mission. Now, it gives them something that Lucas did talk about, that change in dopamine level gives them an incredible amount of courage. And it's necessary to have courage, but also at the same time, it actually endangers a lot of times the teenager brain. It makes the teenagers take risks that otherwise an adult or a more mature person wouldn't. Part of the teenager brain is their what they call these hyper rationalization. So they look at a situation, for example, oh, I really would love to drive this car at a very high speed because the feeling is amazing. And if I think about it, there is a 60% chance that nothing is going to happen and a 40% that maybe I'll get into an accident. So the teenager brain tries to hyper rationalize this and focus, and there is a tendency to focus on the hype, devaluing the consequences of the negative. And it is because of this many times that we end up having teenagers killing sometimes other people in traffic because of this, let's call it a miscalculation that is typical to the teenager brain. So Spiritism can really help when it brings to the teenager this idea of the law of cause and effect, and explains to the teenager brain his or her responsibility in the creation of his or her own destiny. It takes sometimes a second for us to commit a mistake, to do an error, and sometimes decades or centuries to fix that very little error. So a lot of times this is a time where tremendous harm can actually be caused because of these high levels of dopamine, as well as these ways of thinking that the teenager has, that Spiritism can definitely help. And Lucas mentioned about, in every traveling, in every voyage, right, there is always some elements who are more experienced. So the fact that the teenager wants to go out and explore the world and make new connections, we're going to talk about the connections, doesn't mean that he or she needs to forget or deny the parents at home, the family that they have. On the contrary, the best situation is when we can go out there, and this I say for myself, and explore the world and try different things, always knowing that you have someone who can back you up and support you back at home, and go back to this family, to this nuclei that can provide us with the experience and the support that we need to fulfill our mission. The other part of these, the essence of the teenager, is this creative exploration. So creative exploration is this need to question the old. So we grow up thinking that our homes are the best places that can possibly exist and our parents are heroes. At some point in our life, and this is the negative side of this particular characteristic, it's sad. It's sad when we realize that, our parents are actually humans, and all that illusion about them being heroes kind of falls apart. And we start to imagine our own home, the own world we want to build for ourselves. So creative exploration is about the teenagers, the young ability to imagine a new life for himself or for herself. And then the last characteristic of this teenager essence has to do with connections. And so there is in our brain stem, which is the lowest, the most primitive part of our brain, right? We have archived in this area of our brain this experience that if we don't belong, Somewhere we're going to die. And it used to be this way, right? If you didn't belong to a tribe, the likelihood that you would die was like very high. We have that imprinted in our neuropsych. So for the teenager, that feels very true, and it is true, but it becomes very unique because now in this need to leave the home, the teenager also has a need to understand who he and she is separate from the parents. So they need to disidentify with the parents so they can understand who they are apart from the parents, separated from the parents. And this is a very healthy and important process that needs to take place. And many parents don't understand and think that their children don't love them anymore. It has nothing to do with love. It has to do with their need to grow up and figure out who they are. So they're naturally going to look for their tribe, the people that they identify with, that are similar to them. So this is a good thing. The challenging side about this is that this need of belonging is so heightened, is so important that a lot of times they will override their values and the moral in order to belong. So I see that on my son a lot of times. He comes to me and he says, "Mom, I want these sneakers. How much are they?" $250. So I'm like, no way. I'm not going to pay $250 on a pair of sneakers. So I can just have this reaction. Or I can say to him, "Jay, I understand that everybody uses these sneakers today and you want to belong. You want to be like all your other friends. I get that. But there are other ways you can do that. And it doesn't make sense for us to pay that much money on a pair of shoes we can use for so many other things. It's so in better ways. So let's talk about some alternatives here." And here we have a huge role to play together, guiding the youth, because we can guide them and remind them what the values are that we cherish. And a lot of times when belonging means betraying these values, there is an alternative. Find other friends, find other people who actually share those same values with you. So I wanted to bring these ideas to all of you today, so that two things: we can, one, better understand all these changes that we see. There a lot of times are very very high, bring a high level of anxiety for parents and adults alike. But also, with that in mind, we need to see that all these things that are happening, they have a higher and divine purpose. And uh, nothing is random in the universe, and everything is happening so that that spirit can flourish. So this is a very positive process. To be young is a very positive process, and needs, like Lucas said, to be supported by adults who understand, who can be supportive, who can be empathic, and who can provide the guidance, being present and orienting, so that all this potential can be used for higher purpose, the purpose of service, the purpose of bringing these new ideas, the questioning, the novelty, the connections, and putting that into good use for the transformation of the world. I'm going to bring Lucas back right now, and here, and I'm going to finalize what I'm going to say with one more thing. So, although, yes, I think I feel particularly young. And so I try to make sure that all these components of uh, the that compose the essence of our younger young are part of my life. So is there still novelty in my life, right? Am I still seeking to make meaningful connections? Am I still seeking to make changes in the world? Am I still able to imagine a better world for myself and for all of us? So nurturing those characteristics keeps our souls young. But But, and now I'm going to argue with you in a good way. At the age of 50, and we were having this conversation before, right? And you said to me, well, you're married, you have kids, you have a very busy life. So sometimes at the very end of my day, when I come home from work after a full day working, the last thing that I want to do is to think about changing the world. You know what I mean? So there is a time I'm kind of subtle. Yes, I'm here, doing this with you. I think we're still doing a lot of good things for the world. But the younger young, they have a bigger reserve. Let's put it this way. And so I think that we need to really, really continue to focus our work in supporting our young so that they can do as Paul did. I mean, he was extremely supportive of Timothy. And there are so many parts of the letter where there's one that I like very much where he talks about the need to honor family first and the parents. He tells Timothy that, which goes in line with what we are talking about here. And that's it. I think, give our youth the support that they need and making sure that we remain young so that each one of us is doing our part in this world. What do you think?
There is this book, my favorite book,
Mm-hmm.
uh, by Emmanuel and Chico, and it is called Renunciation, Renúncia in Portuguese.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, in the second part of the book, the third chapter, I bought in Amazon in English to read.
Mm-hmm.
May I read a couple phrases?
Sure.
Uh, Alcione is talking about one verse, also of the second to Timothy. And
You need to do one thing though,
yes,
because we need to remember that some friends who are American are very unfamiliar with the
okay,
book, with the context, and everything else. So we need to put things into context for them so people can have a better understanding on what are we
okay.
talking about. Go ahead.
Um, we have those what we call the romance of Emmanuel. We have, and he's going to talk about his past lives and when he met Jesus 2,000 years ago, and his his next incarnation and 50 years after. And there is those what we call the romance of Emmanuel. And that is in the chronological order, the book Renunciation. It is Renúncia in Portuguese. And it is about the family. It is, I don't know, in the 17th century in France, Spain. And there is the, let's say, that huge light that is Alcione, and she decided to reincarnate again in Earth to help his past, friends, loves, fathers, mothers, and that is one part of the book. That, as we said, in the second part, the chapter 3, she's going to interpret, going to analyze one verse of the second um, letter of Paul to Timothy, and she's going to talk about. Let me see if I find in English. Um, Okay. Here is a trustworthy saying: if we have died with him, we shall also live with him. So when we analyze, well, in the first step we analyze the literal part. Okay, well, if we die with Christ, we are going to find Christ in afterlife. But Alcione here is going to talk about how it is, how Paul is not talking about the dying of the biological body. He's talking about the dying of the old man is talking about. And she goes like this: Every life is a learning process which we are slowly consumed so that we may reach the holiness of the Master. Childhood, youth, and old age, with their transitory nature, cannot be what life really is. They are phases of struggle, demonstrations of the sacred God given opportunity to purge ourselves of the coarseness of our sentiments. So many times we think that we are, for example, we may reach the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and we think, okay, that's it. It is. it is end of my life. I cannot change myself, cannot change my feelings, how my point of views of life. However, if we are dealing with the spiritual values, if we are inside spiritism, we need to remember life is eternal. We are incarnated because we need to have the experience of marriage or having children, of the work, of the job, the study, college, masters, and the kind of stuff to really to learn, to put on the work that we learn in our past lives. So life cannot be only the biological life, so it needs to go beyond that. So when we think about what you can do about youth, for example, about, oh, I'm so tired, I don't want to think about changing the world. You are changing the world because I mean, we are part of the world, we are part of society, we are part of the cycle of life. So if I am changing myself, if I remember every day that I have to talk with my family, I do not forget my children, I talk to them, I love them, I'm changing the world. Many times we don't salute, we don't applaud, no, and many quotes. The small efforts to changing, because we, okay, sometimes we look, oh, he's he's ending the poverty in Africa, he is, I don't know, saving children in other side of the world, he's giving billions and billions to those causes. However, also we need to consider how we deal with the spiritual side, because giving money, changing what the body feels, of course, is important, but also remember that we cannot go beyond or go better without the other. So when you go tired after the work in the hospital, and you kiss your children, you talk to your wife, you remember to pray before going to sleep, you are changing the world because you are changing yourself. Your life is not going to be spent away in a sad and lonely way, because a good life needs to be lived with others.
I'm gonna have to agree with you. I'm not gonna disagree with that. So we are so we are in tune. So all right, so I think we come to the end of our conversation. I want to thank you again for being with us this morning. And Lucas will be returning in October, right?
Yes,
October, yes.
yes.
And it's the month of our anniversary, and he will be actually doing a full lecture for
Oh boy.
us. Yes, in October. So I am looking forward to it. And so he will be back. All right.
So
We're gonna thank you again. Put you on backstage again. And we are going to end our meeting uh, doing our final prayer. Before we do our final prayer, just would like to remind everyone that we continue to be working online, all our study groups. For the English speaking folks, we do have groups on Wednesdays. Um, we have the studies of missionaries of the light, and we have the study of Genesis happening every Sunday, actually before this meeting at 9:30 with David and our friend Carlos. So if you're interested, this group just started. It's a brand new one. You can join in 9:30. If you go to the Facebook page of a Conscious Living Spirits group, the information is there. If you need any help accessing the groups, just let me know. Send us a message and we'll help you to connect. Okay. So, with that, I ask you to join me for our final prayer today by saying, Dear Father, thank you so much for this opportunity, for the experience that we had together. One more friend who is also now part of our Conscious Living family. Um, we ask you to continue to bless him in his journey, in his works, and bless us all as we all continue to fulfill our missions each day, giving life the very best that we have, and taking from life all the necessary experience that will help us to continue to shape our souls and to bring us to the right path constructing peace and harmony within us. Bless all the world, bless all the people who are in need, our homes, our family members, any person who we may have in our minds at this time who is in need of spiritual, material, emotional help. May the good spirits that work in the name of goodness, love, be with them, giving them the resources, the inspiration, the strength, and the courage to continue on, to press on with their battles, knowing that better days are certain to come. Thank you again for the blessings of this morning. Bless us all, and so be it. All right, dear friends, thank you so much. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for your presence. We'll see you again next Sunday. Have a great, great day, a wonderful weekend.